All right, welcome back everybody to Wow Mystery Track Theater. Today we have a very special guest. He's a shot putter, 2016 Olympic champion, human cannon, Ryan Crouser. Ryan,
Thanks. Hey,
welcome.
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. How you doing out there?
Doing pretty well. Just kind of, it is what it is right now. Trying to make the best of it. But doing the what training I can and just trying to stick as best I can to kind of a regimented schedule. Pretty easy, kind of go off the rails right now.
Yeah, it's tough. I could sleep in until noon and not even realize it.
Yeah, I feel like especially for the athletes, I mean, in the past and most all athletes I think will agree, like you get really into a rhythm with eating, training, sleeping, and it's when you kind of lose that, you kind of lose a lot of the structure and functionality of the program that you might be training on. So for me, it's been just working on trying to maintain as close as I can to a normal training. And granted, it's been a lot of modification, kind of doing what I can, or adaptation in a lot of my training. But I feel like I've finally got into a rhythm now now that really quarantine's starting to open up a little bit. So I'm overall pretty happy with where I'm at.
Does that schedule keep you centered and more sane?
Yeah, so I mean, my training is between throwing, lifting, and like plyometrics. I still stay pretty busy. So I've been throwing 3 or 4 days a week, depending on the week, and then lifting 5 to 6 days a week. So still quite a bit of time spent training, and each of those sessions are anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. So still staying pretty busy.
We usually talk about races or events, specific events that were pivotal in athletes' careers. But today we're going to be talking about a 6-week training block between the time that you got your master's at the University of Texas
Mm-hmm.
to the 2016 Olympic trials. And that was an extremely influential period of time for you. Why don't you tell us why?
Yeah, so for me, looking back at the timeline of it, so I graduated with my undergrad in 2015 in May, and then rolled straight on right in June started with working on my master's in finance.
Little time
And
for training.
exactly, so that was I like the whole year. It was really just like damage control. I felt like trying to really focus on lifting, and because I can get more training in 1 hour of lifting than I can in 1 hour of throwing. So I moved a lot of my throwing to the weekends, and then was trying to lift usually in the mornings. And so it felt like that whole year that I was really working hard outside of the classroom in terms of throwing and my lifting, but it wasn't really showing up at all. Really kind of like a test of faith in my program of can I commit to this when I'm not seeing results at all? But I feel I was still laying a foundation for later on in the season when I needed to be throwing far.
Hmm.
So my first professional meet was after finishing college was Prefontaine, and it didn't really go that well. I think I finished like I want to say like fifth, but was disappointed with the distance that I threw because I felt like once again like I had this huge foundation, this training base, and it was like where's kind of like the it factor of connecting everything. It was those 6 weeks after I graduated. I moved out to the Olympic Training Center and really focused 100% on being a professional athlete, and everything kind of started clicking. I was able to get the amount of sleep. I was sleeping 9 to 10 hours a night and focus entirely on training. And then on my downtime, making sure I was recovered and not having to be studying and really scheduling training around school. I was scheduling my whole day around training. So it was then everything kind of started clicking. The distances started getting better. And it was like, once it started rolling, it was like a dam broke. I saw the little bit of success and it was like, okay, here it is. And then it was kind of like a positive spiral of, okay, now this is clicking. I can work on this, and things got better and better. I was just rolling going into the Olympic trials and threw a huge PR there, first time over 22 meters
Yeah.
to win at the Olympic trials, and then punch my ticket to Rio.
That base of weight training,
Mm-hmm.
is that similar to a base of mileage in
Yeah, it'd be a pretty good comparison. So for us, Like when you get your mileage up, like everything just feels kind of like not that you're inefficient. It just feels like you can't do stuff fast. And so like throwing is pretty similar. So when you're in the weight room a lot, you're building really that strength foundation, and almost like building the engine that will generate the power that you then will work to kind of work on efficiency.
Yeah, was anybody who was guiding your training at this point in time?
So I was working with Trey Zapata, who was my strength coach at the time. So he was doing the programming for part of the year, but then he left. He left the university and took a private job, and so that was a big movement too. So I went from working with him. I was still in contact with him and bouncing ideas off, but it was a transition year. So I was writing my own training for the first time at that point.
It sounds like a very intensive program.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people who don't know too much about track or the shot put, they think, oh yeah, these are just big meatheads out there throwing a ball. But the shot put is a very technical and it's a very intellectual event, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of thought and calculation that goes into it and coordination. Uh, did those two things, finance and shot put, line up to you at all, or are they different?
For me, I've always been a numbers guy and been like mathematics based as opposed to kind of, I'd say, art based. So what's attracted me, at least, because especially doing my program from 2016 on, writing my own training program from 2016 onwards, it's been kind of a challenge, but a fun challenge to figure out kind of what works best for me. So being numbers based and technical based, it's something that I kind of enjoy, because at the end of the day, it's still a challenge of figuring out what's the best thing for me and what's going to get me to my goals. So managing like throwing volume, but then you also break down techniques. So you're looking at angles. So you can only generate so much force. That's the weight room aspect of how much force can you generate. And then the technical aspect is, we've got this to work with. How efficiently can we transfer this? So if you got force vectors, like if you're falling off to the left and you're throwing the ball to the right, obviously you're not lining it up straight. So you're losing a lot of energy. So it's kind of constantly working to develop the strength base and how much power do we have, and then transfer that power into getting it going into the ball.
How good does it feel when it all clicks, though, and it all clicks on the right day when you want it to? What
Yeah.
is that feeling like?
Yeah. Those are like really the days that kind of keep you going as an athlete. It's like you put in all this work to develop all of the base and then the foundation, then you finally get the peaking and everything right. Then, okay, I've backed off and I've tapered down and I feel good. And then technically, like, I'm executing, and you might have one or two of those days, shoot, a year at best if you're lucky. But on those days, it's like you're just feel like you're the most athletic you've ever been. And then when you go to throw and go to execute technically, it's just super easy. Whenever you're executing well, it's like you're working at about 30 or 40%. You're just going through, I feel like you're going through the motions, and it's just everything's running on autopilot. You're not thinking, it's just, you're completely reactive.
I remember I was at the Millrose games this year, and you're 6'7", 320 pounds.
Yeah.
You're walking across the center of the track in this big black hat headed toward the ring. And it painted an awesome picture just to see that silhouette walking out there. What's the black hat all about?
Yeah, so it just so like when I grew up, I always loved wearing cowboy hats, and so like my mom has a picture of me wearing my uncle's cowboy hat. And it's like down over my eyes, and
Hey, you and me both, brother. I love it too.
Yeah, and then I don't know, I had tied a towel around myself as a cape, because apparently a cowboy hat needed a cape at like 4 or 5 years old.
Hell yeah, it does.
And so yeah, I've always like loved wearing cowboy hats, and then like those were my favorite pajamas that I had growing up, had cartoon cowboys on them. And so I don't know, I've always liked the cowboy hat, and I was joking with the guys at the center. was like, man, I should just wear a cowboy hat at one of the meets. And like, you won't do it. And so I ended up doing it at a meet over in Europe, and I was staying over right, and then to the meet right after it, I like showed up at the hotel, and then the front desk greeted me, and they're like, "Where's the cowboy hat?" And I was like, "Oh, I have it. Like, I'm just not wearing it." And they're like, I can't believe you're not wearing the cowboy hat. And so I had the day I didn't wear it before the meet, I had more questions about why I wasn't wearing it than I had the entire time wearing it the whole meet before. So it was like the people there, it was unbelievable to me how quickly people caught on. Like I wore the cowboy hat once in Europe, and then everyone was obsessed with the cowboy hat from that point on. So I was like, I guess this is kind of my trademark now at this point. And since then, people have really, really caught on to it. I think being 6'7", 315, it stands out.
I see a marketing strategy here.
Yeah.
And you chose the black hat. The man who wears the black hat is typically the villain of the story. Do you take on a villainous persona in the ring?
I don't know. I'm just out there trying to have a good time, trying to throw a PR. So
okay.
If the black hat means I'm a villain, I guess I'll take it.
Yeah, the Dark Knight.
Exactly.
But shifting gears to a lighter topic, now is the point in this show where we talk about your absolute favorite recipe of all time, one that you make better than anybody else, and that you enjoy more than anything else that you've ever made.
Yeah, so for me, it's called a Dutch Baby Pancake, for those at home that want to look it up. My grandma brought the recipe, or found it, and when she came over from Sweden when she was younger. And so she used to make it for us growing up, like when I was real little. I couldn't say Dutch Baby or anything, so I'll just say Baba. That's what I used to call it. I want a Baba. And so it's pretty much like a giant crepe. It's thin at the bottom, so the sides rise up, especially right when you take it out. So it kind of has like the best world. So it has the top texture is kind of like a waffle.
Oh yeah.
And the bottom is like a crepe. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's my favorite breakfast food by far.
What do you do on top of yours?
So you can do lemon juice, or pretty much anything you would want to put on pancakes or waffles. Like you can do whipped cream. The traditional is like lemon juice and powdered sugar is what my grandma did. But then we put syrup on top of that. So I usually do syrup with a little bit of lemon juice and some powdered sugar.
Oh yeah. Well, look at this. I followed your recipe to a T, but we put some cinnamon apples on there too.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
that looks pretty good.
I'm gonna dig into this.
All right, I gotta grab a knife and cut off a piece.
Oh yeah, this thing you need a knife. This is my first Dutch Baby.
Yeah, so you'll have to give it, if you like it, give it another try and eat it like right out of the oven. Like if you can just the moment it comes out, like cut off a piece while it's still full and fluffy. That's when it's really at its best.
Oh yeah, this is incredible. What are we gonna toast to with this?
Shoot, just let me know.
Let's do throwing shots further than anybody else.
All right.
Lifting the quarantine.
Yeah.
Here's to sending one into orbit.
All right.
Yeah. Baba's up. All right. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thanks for coming on Wow Mystery Track Theater. I think we found out what the mystery is. I'm not exactly sure. We never really know, but we had a good time while we did it.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely.
So, have a good one.
You too. See ya.
Right. Bye.